попадают по нему.
Well, guys, it was a massive Ukrainian strike on Russian oil ports in Caucasus, Novorossiysk and Tuapse. Here you may see a Ukrainian Magura drone boat which is heading towards Novorossiysk port. Well, this drone actually was stopped by the Russian machine guns, by the Russian defense, but in Tuapse the attack was successful. No ships were hit, but Ukraine significantly damaged the most important part of the port infrastructure. Well, here you may see that the drone was stopped and later on finished. This image shows how it burns in the water, and according to the recent reports, there were at least 2 of the drones which were heading to Novorossiysk, but again, Tuapse strike was successful. Let me show you. And here is the video from Tuapse, where Ukrainian drone actually enters the bay. You may see huge tanker ships, and later on I will tell you why they are there and why this pier is very important. And this is the Russian Navy ship. You might see that it opened the fire on the drone, and drone continued its movement. It's very fast drone boat, as you can see, and it also maneuvers left and right, and here it maneuvers back to that pier with that oil tanker. You see, it goes and ship starts to retreat because it thinks, or crew thinks, that it goes towards it, but no, the main important thing is to aim towards this Russian important oil infrastructure. Here we go with kaboom. This is the main oil refilling station of this port bay. This is huge, one of the biggest in Russia. Russia uses this line to refill their oil tankers with oil. It's very hard to repair this stuff, and it is out of service for extended period of time, could be even for months. And this picture was published by Ukrainian Cyber Boroshnet channel. This is the track of the boat which hit this piers, I may call it, or it is the refueling line, it's better to say. And there was the oil tanker. Yes, it could be the target for Ukrainian drones, but I'm not sure whether this tanker actually belonged to Russia, because Russia continued to trade with other countries and they might send even their ships to the Russian ports. So it's better to cut this line for refueling. And by cutting this line, I guess Ukraine caused even more damage. So here's the scheme of the port, and the trajectory of the Ukrainian drone was like that, around. So this is the Russian military ship, this is the oil tanker. Ukraine hit this part. On the other side, there's some oil tanks and different infrastructure, and this part of the port is for grains and other stuff, so it's not fuel-related thing. It says Zernovoy terminal, so grain terminal, and here I'm not sure, but it's not gas, it's not oil. And on this video we may see that also extra kabooms happened inside the port, inside the city, I would say, behind the main port line. Locals reported about even some of the missiles which could have been launched from the drones themselves. So there is actually a modification of the Ukrainian drone boat Sea Baby, which could carry some of the rocket artillery system on top. Well, it's not a big caliber, but Russians say it could be effective. Especially in today's attack, they claim that it is the Ukrainian drone boat that was used. Alright, here we have one more video from the local eyewitness who filmed 2 of the kabooms actually, so we have the confirmation. Let's watch this video.
Пацаны, как вам?
One kaboom
Как вам?
and another one.
Я вам.
He says that "Я в ахуе," which means I'm surprised. Actually, I'm also kind of surprised with today's Ukrainian vivid open attack during the daytime. It's outstanding. But I think that after all, at night, the chance for successful operation is higher. And I have more info about Novorossiysk. Ukraine also launched some of the air drones, and Russia used the air defense as usual, and you may see the result of their operation. Yeah, they hit some of their own building, as it is reported and already confirmed by the eyewitnesses. Why it could be like that? Because for the last couple of days I saw many of the Russian air defense Panzer 1S missiles went into the same Russian buildings, but somewhere in Belgorod Oblast, or in the Kursk region of Lvov town. Let me show you some of the images. Alright, here we have it.
Короче, вот такая вот ерунда. Вот он этот, я так понимаю, блок.
Yeah, that's the Russian Panzer 1S engine, yeah? The booster engine that launches the air defense missile. And Russians report about one more, calling it a Ukrainian missile, which is absolute nonsense, because we all know already how this booster engine looks on Panzer 1S. And here is probably the local hotel. Yeah, the same picture we usually witness in Ukraine sometimes also could happen in Russia. Maybe Russians intercepted Ukrainian drones just like that. This video, for example, shows a Ukrainian drone FP1 that was intercepted and later on kaboomed just on a road or in a field. I remember how Russia accused the Ukrainian side for using electronic warfare for shutting down the Russian drones or air defense systems for shutting down the Russian missiles, and they say let them fly to hit your military targets, otherwise they hit civilian infrastructure. Well, Russia, we may say the same for your side. So Ukraine is capable not just to hit the Russian oil refinery capabilities, but also the supplyment of the Russian oil to the third countries. From Tuapse, Russia usually sent oil to the Southeast Asia, including countries like Singapore and even Indonesia. Yeah, Indonesia has its own oil, but Russia sent some of the oil chemical components there for the fuel production. Now that way is closed. I think at least for several months, and Donald Trump should be satisfied because he was so much against the Russian oil export to India, to China, and to European Union. Well, Ukraine applies its own sanctions on that. And this video comes from Novorossiysk port, where Russia managed to stop Ukrainian drone strike, and you see that locals are filming it. They're cheerful. But in Tuapse, the picture was totally different. So this is what was happening in Tuapse. Let me show you this video.
Вот так лежим. Пуля над головой летает, блядь. Никак не...
Those Russians were going to the beach, but they were stopped by their own Russian defense. And at the end of this video, let me play you this part with more audio gain, so here you'll hear it.
Попали, блядь. Попали. Ох ты, блядь.
You see, bullets, you heard, yeah? Bullets are very, very close, near them. It's kind of tricky for those Russian tourists. Well, I wonder why Ukraine decided to do it during the daytime, to show maybe to everyone that Ukraine is capable to send the drones that far away, because Tuapse and Novorossiysk, they're behind Crimea, in Caucasus. The drone alert was announced all across the coastline, including the main city of Sochi, which is the popular tourist destination. It was definitely a big kaboom day for the Russian Federation, because Ukraine hit Salavat oil refinery facility in Bashkortostan. Roughly 1 week ago, Ukraine already hit it, but today refinery was left without one more distillation plant, which might take Russia again several months to restore. And usually there are several of the distillation units in each refinery, and from what I see, Ukraine hits the initial distillation plant in every refinery, so it completely stops the refinery operation, because the other distillation plants, they are not needed in this case without initial one, right? Alright, and that is the situation with the Russian fuel in occupied Crimea. You may see lots of the cars out there. Yeah, you can see they still drive out there. They're capable to do it, but it's very, very rarely that Russia sends some fuel to peninsula. Usually Russia sends weapons to the front lines via Crimea. That's why it's still important to kaboom the Kerch Bridge. But definitely there is the crisis, not just in Crimea, but in most of the Russian regions with absence of fuel. They declared fuel emergency. And it's going to get even worse for Russia. The Russian economy definitely struggles, and we have one more sign for it today. So the Russian Finance Ministry proposes raising VAT taxes to help fund Ukrainian war. Well, the initial rise will be for 2% only from 20 to 22, but it's already kind of the interesting sign. So it's a sign of the possible so-called soft landing of the Russian economy, as was announced by Putin himself. But Putin's secretary Peskov today stated that Russians are ready for additional burden for Putin. He really said like that, it's the quote. The overwhelming majority of our country's population is absolutely entitled around President Putin. This is absolutely indisputable fact. And those who support President Putin, are they ready for some additional burden under the current conditions? I have no doubt that they're ready. So they're not even saying about support of Russia or something. They're saying about supporting Putin and his war effort. Well, actually, it's not his own solo decision, I mean, of Putin himself. No, it's about all of the FSB circle around Putin, the Russian regime, how it is. Well, Peskov is right about one thing. The Russian society is really inactive. And also they're ready to go for the war in Ukraine, in neighboring country, for millions of rubles, to die themselves or to cause death for Ukrainians. It is not Putin himself who goes to Ukraine and flatlines everyone. No, those are Russians who go again to Ukraine mostly voluntarily. So the problem itself also lies within the Russian society, and we don't see how they protest or something like that. No, they're pretty much okay with the current situation. Well, we'll see how it goes further, because their economy is going down and down, and Ukraine, I would say, acts the most in this sphere to apply drone sanctions on Russian refineries and other infrastructure. Also, Peskov today stated that Russia is not a paper tiger. It was the response to yesterday's Trump's tweets. I'm sure that they were panicking about that mood change of Donald Trump, but I wouldn't say that it's the final update of Donald, that he is pro-Ukrainian or something. No. Plus, Peskov called the special military operation war. He said, this is war. Just to remind you, some of Russians are now in prison because they were calling SMO war, but for Peskov, everything is okay. He may call SMO war or as he wants to call it. So Peskov said Russia is not a paper tiger, we are bear, and there are no paper bears. Sounds cringe, but that's what he said. As for Ukraine, he said those who refuse to talk today will face worse terms tomorrow. But it's not about talking, it's about following the Russian demands to give up Donetsk Oblast, as Putin told to Donald Trump in Alaska. And initially Donald Trump was following that vector that, okay, we're going to push Ukraine to give up its own territories, but Zelensky refused, and Ukrainian government in general. So at this point, it is not about negotiations, it's about Putin, who would like to continue this war. In the same statement, Peskov said that if Ukraine refuses for those negotiations, or in other case Russian demands, Russia will reach its goals in Ukraine using military force. But there are still some of the countries, including the countries of the European Union, like for example Hungary, which continue to support the Russian economy. And Syro, the foreign minister of Hungary, today stated that despite what Trump wants, Hungary will continue to purchase the Russian oil. So I think the most effective variant in this case is to apply Ukrainian drone sanctions on Druzhba pipeline once again, and then again and again. Luckily, Magyar knows that, and he will do his job perfectly. Just a couple of days ago, my friends, I told you about the strike on Kacha airfield, and I know this very well because I used to be there, and today there was one more strike. We have the satellite image. Yeah, it's a bad quality image so far. I'm waiting for the new, but some dark spots are visible. Moreover, yesterday I got the information about the Ukrainian drone strike there. Definitely there are some of the changes on the apron. We'll see next in a couple of more days, I hope not 2 weeks, but before, about what particularly was hit there. If it was a Ukrainian drone unit Primary, they usually publish video evidence. And as for the Google images, it looks like one more helicopter stand and airplane stand, and something there was hit for sure. Right guys, we have some breaking news. While I was filming this video, I got a report, first of all, from our followers on my channel, that Aalborg airport is being closed because of the drone activity. This is again Denmark. So just a couple of days ago, Copenhagen airport was closed, and now one more drone activity? This is something really unusual. And by the way, we have some of the video filmed from Copenhagen a couple of days ago. Yeah, this is what was spotted in Denmark just right now. Some sort of the object flying, as you may see, shining brightly. Usually, if it is a surveillance drone, it needs to gather some of the information. It would not shine. It would fly from the very long distance with a big zoom camera, with a thermal camera, night vision to gather the information. But here it's done like for purpose, to show the drone flying close to the airport, maybe for this airport to be closed and to cause all of those disturbances in the air traffic, and not only. And this is what was filmed a couple of days ago. Some sort of the flying object. It's not the airplane, it is something green out there, looks like UFO, but it's not the UFO. It is something different. Well, one of the lights is flashing like a strobe light. Actually looks like the military helicopter or something, but no helicopter activity was at the time at this particular place. The drones, by the way, they were not shut down or something, they just left the area and no one seen them once again. Crazy. And according to the latest information, more drones were spotted all across Denmark, at least in 3 of the areas, in Aalborg, in Elsberg, and in Sennerborg. I hope I spelled those names correctly, but it is not normal, and NATO should do something to protect the skies around its own members. Here's one more video from this distance with this green image. It's hard to say what is flying there. Could be an airplane, as for me, but locals say it is a drone spotted. Could be. Right, guys, we have some great news for Ukraine from our European Union partners. So there will be a reparation loan given to Ukraine. Could be given. The talks are still ongoing, but I think it will be like that. So 130 billion euros will be given to Ukraine in the next 2 years, 2027 and 2028, so in 1 year. Yeah, obviously Hungary will try to block it, but there will be soon elections in Hungary, and I think Orban doesn't have any chance to win those because TISA is leading the polls. Slovakia might block, might not, we'll see. Slovakia, after all, supports Ukrainian European Union initiatives and Ukrainian membership in the European Union, but Hungary, obviously, with Orban, it is no-go, and they veto absolutely everything, because I may say Orban is just the Russian or Chinese Assad out there in the European Union. But I'm sure that this help will be given for Ukraine, and it will include some of the military support, because Ukraine is now as a shield of the European Union security, or the shield of entire Europe, because we see that the United States is not willing to support some of the military programs, especially for Baltic countries. It's not a good sign, so Ukraine plays the great role here. My friends, as for the front lines, I'm gonna record the video tomorrow, but we have this major update. It is coming for now from the Russian channels, like for example this Z blogger Anatoly Radov writes that Russia lost Nikhanorivka village in Dobropilya direction, and it is crucial actually for Russians, because this encirclement of the Russian group out there is almost imminent. He says, sadly, we lost Nikhanorivka, Boykovka is in a gray zone, Novotoretsk is still under our control, but I have the information that Ukrainian forces are out there in Novotoretsk, despite what he says. Maybe there are fights ongoing with Russian presence. Well, this map is not so good, but Boykovka is over here and Novotoretsk is here. Ukraine is very, very close to cut the Russian supplies entirely, which will lead to the catastrophe for many of the Russian forces in this trap. Absolutely great news. As usual, special thanks for my Patreon supporters and also members of the channel. Guys, thank you so much for your kind motivation and your kind support. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.